Hey everybody, welcome to the stream. It's Art with Wet Hair. I had to mow my lawn and then get some food in me. Because today was not, it was a busy day, let's put it that way. A lot of things to do. But I have a keynote to write, which is the first time I'll have done that. First time I'll have given a keynote, also first time I've written one, so fair to both. And there is lots of work to do. So the impromptu stream I did on Saturday or Sunday, we drafted a abstract and a couple of titles. The title we wound up with was Survival Under Fire, Navigating the Dark Forest. The abstract is here. It's probably a little long for a keynote, really, but I should be making sure my audio is working. Yeah, it looks like it is. It's probably a little long for a keynote, really, but it's, I don't know. I put enough into it that I wanted to make people feel like, oh, hey, that's actually worth listening to and not tuning out. Although I will have a little bit of a captive audience in the sense that, I mean, it is a keynote for starters. It's also the second keynote of the morning. The conference in question, Prairie.Code, which is in Des Moines, does 2 keynotes in the morning and none in the afternoon. So I actually think all the Amagala ones have switched to that, which is interesting. But so if you've ever watched me give or build a talk before, and honestly probably most of you haven't, I tend to go about things in a weird way. I don't know if it's a weird way, but I tend to think a little harder about kind of the arc of the presentation. And this is kind of that. I mean, because presentations should have a narrative arc. They should really start someplace and then build and then conclude. Like, mostly people are going to pull narrative away from your talk. I mean, humans process things as narratives anyway, so you need to have a narrative in the talk that they can latch onto so that they understand why they care about the thing you're talking about. That's absolutely 100% essential for the what I'm thinking about and what I'm talking about, which is mental health, because unlike a lot of, I was talking with a couple of friends about this, and one of Nate Taylor, who was arguably my speaking mentor and the guy that got me into this whole thing, thanks Nate, mentioned that it is a little different because unlike when you're giving a talk at a conference, you often have, well, if you're giving a non-keynote talk, rather, or at a conference where there are multiple tracks, people get to select which talk they go to, right? You don't force them into, like, it's not like you're corralling them off in the corners into your talk. So, sorry, grabbing my phone cord because I need to remember to charge it. So, what that means is that people get to choose. If you do not believe that mental health is a thing, or that you need to care about it, or, you know, for whatever reason, it doesn't have to be that you just like, meh, no, I'm the embodiment of toxic masculinity, I don't need it. You know, there's plenty of reasons why you could be just like, it seems like comfortable, I don't necessarily want to deal with it, I don't want to engage with that topic. There's a whole bunch of different reasons why you might want to not go to this. On the other hand, with a keynote, you have a little bit of a captive audience. Now, it's not like they can't get up and walk out, but it means that, one, once you're in the room, that's really awkward to do, especially if you're in the big conference room that the keynotes usually are in, like with which the whole conference sitting there, or all the attendees effectively sitting there. But it also means that there's just a hurdle, less of a hurdle. Like, it's like, oh, I'm here, I might as well sit. You know, maybe I'll be on my phone if it gets boring or whatever, right? You err on the side of following the group, following the herd, so to speak. And that's just normal. That's how humans tend to work. So there is a difference in the talk. There's a difference in this talk than how I would normally give a talk on mental health, because I have to do a lot more legwork. I've got to be more vague. Vague's probably not the best word. I need to be way more general, is really the way that this works. I need to be talking to them in a language that they understand. I can't just jump immediately into the way that I would normally talk about this stuff, because people will tune out. I need to convince them that they need to care about these things. And so that's talking about the things and the terms they understand and the ways that they understand and pulling them into my world through. I mean, that's part of what I want to do with this keynote. So this talk, as compared to some of my others, is going to be a little more, like I said, general, a little more broad, definitely a broader topic, broader content base, broader audience intent. So with that, it's pretty obvious, even if you, like, yes, last year's been stressful. I think it would be hard for people to, well, actually, I don't know that that's true, now that I'm thinking about it. I think there's certainly a lot of ways that somebody could construct a narrative that it wasn't hard for them. To be fair, it probably hasn't been hard for everybody, but in the psychological sense of the term stress, it has 100% been stressful for everyone. My job is, I guess, to convince them of that out of the gate, huh? I don't think that's going to be hard for most of the audience. I think there will be some people in the audience that I will want to go a little bit further just to see if I can grab them. Because if I can pull them in, that'll be a get for me. I mean, it's not like I'm going to know. But if I can get somebody who would normally not be, like, they're in the audience, they're maybe not paying 100% attention, but if I can get them to go, wait a minute, that sounds like me. If I can get one person out of an audience of 500 people, I'll consider that a win. If I can pull them over onto the side that starts thinking about the way that they think and the way that their brain works. Because frankly, I think that's, in terms of practical lasting change out of a talk, that's about as good as you can really hope for, is maybe 1% of the audience. Maybe, that would be 5 people, I guess, 1%. But, so let's say I'm shooting for 5. What was the attendance at Prairie.Code last year? Wow, I can type. Okay, my keyboard's not playing nice today. Registration's open. About. I wonder how many attendees they had last year. Sponsorship prospectus. This is a fun way to find out things about the conference. Most conferences will typically have a prospectus or something for prospective sponsors to download. That can tell you a lot about a conference, actually, because of the way they position it, the way that they talk about it to the people who are paying for it effectively. All of those things will teach you things about the conference. Because they have to, this is the sell that they're making. Oh my God, is that Spencer? That can't be Spencer. It looks like it though. A fellow speaker. Sponsorship fact, who attends this conference? 3%, 54%. Actually, I should really need to download more of these now that I'm thinking about it, because this gives me a huge amount of information about who might show up at my talks. Yep, can't get that. Thank God for that. On the other hand, you can scan the badges as much as you want, so okay. Come on, give me a broad number of attendees. Eh. Drink ticket giveaway. All right. Well, it doesn't say, but point is still. Actually, think about that. course, he includes the titles that are like president, etc. Oh, good lord. One time I would like you to actually like format paste and you just completely screw the pooch. Okay, so there's the audience that I'm thinking about, which is mostly developers, no shock. Some, the largest, quarter of them, senior lead, software engineer, some degree of that. Senior lead, that's good. Okay, so I've got a bunch of people in the audience that could change things at that level. But this talk is going to be pretty personal. It just helps me to know, well, and a lot of my talks target kind of individual contributors. But a lot of the time when we start talking about this thing, I want to be sure to put in things about how they can affect their company, ways they can make their team more resilient, etc. Those are certainly things that I can include. Okay. But what I'm going to cover now... Okay, so we got possible audience, we've got the topics I want to cover, and we have a very rough arc that I think I want for this presentation. And I think that's enough to get started with the nuts, well, semi-nuts and bolts of this. So, over to your friend and mine, Microsoft PowerPoint. If you've not seen me create presentations before, which I guess probably most of you haven't if you're actually watching. You have viewers? Hey, if somebody's watching. Hello, whoever you are. I have a blank presentation that I've created myself. So I don't start with a Microsoft blank presentation because I have my own slide master that I use to help streamline the process of creating a presentation. And that's this thing. So, welcome to my title slide, which we know the title. Now, this title slide, yes, of course. I hate you so much. This is going to be hidden, and I will draw over it. We'll turn that into a drawn slide. So, all right. The first thing I do when I'm creating a presentation is add this. So you may notice there's red, blue, and green slides underneath my image here, like my video feed, camera feed. I tend to use colored markers to show where I am in a presentation, to help me know what I have left to do, the things that I have left to complete, kind of give me an idea of progress. In an ideal situation, everything goes to 0. I wind up with no colored slides in my presentation, except this purple slide. This purple slide is special because this is the slide that I put on the story. These are the things that I want people to walk away from the talk with. What are the things that I want them to retain? That way, 1, this keeps it front and center while I'm creating the talk. And 2, if I come back to the talk in 6 months to a year and I don't remember what the hell I was even doing with it, this helps me orient and say, these are the things that I actually care about in this presentation. Obviously I don't show that. This ends up as a hidden slide, but it's the only colored slide that actually sticks around. Eventually we will be adding red slides. Well, next thing after this, we'll be adding blue slides, and blue slides are scaffolding slides, structure slides. The rough arc will get directly copy pasted into that, and we'll work on turning that out into a full-on outline. A blue slide is basically a placeholder slide that I don't know how many slides it's going to turn into. Green slides, on the other hand, are a placeholder slide for a single slide. So when I end up with a bunch of green slides, I have know how much work I actually have to do. Red slides are placeholders for something is missing. I have not finished this content. I'm not sure what's going to go here. So as I jump around, I'll be creating and moving around red slides just to keep... The benefit is... Let's see if I can show you. open. Where was the last talk I gave? Handful of things. Here we go. This is a lightning talk I gave at work. So the benefit of doing the colored slides is I can actually just scroll down this slide preview on the left-hand side. And let me add one in here so you can see. That stands out. It's a way of helping me remember and notice I have work left to do. And so I don't wind up accidentally forgetting something or leaving something out. Come on. Is my keyboard not working now? Oh, it straight up is not. That's pretty awesome. I wonder if I need new batteries. Probably. Oh, there it goes. It finally caught up. Well, the Control-Z certainly not. Alright, something's going weird there. We're just not going to save and move on. When it popped into the Control-Z's caught up here. I would like you to not do whatever it is you're doing. Thank you. Alright, tell you what. I'll be right back. I'm going to get some new batteries for this keyboard because as fun as it might be to watch me struggle against it, I'm going to throw this against the wall in about 30 seconds. So, I'll be right back. Hello, welcome back. Okay, I can actually type again, so things are better. Okay, so where were we? We were working on the things that I want people to take away from this talk. I try to limit it to 3, sometimes it's 4, but it's around that range of the number of things. These are just bullet points. So looking at what I've got, What I want people to remember. Okay, first thing is probably the most important thing. That's probably lesson number one. That's what I want people to take away for the most of this, because that gives them, one, that gives them license to have feelings that they don't like, have thoughts that they don't like, and it gives them license to not feel like failure when they have those things. So that's super important. Two, it leads directly to, I think, what the second point is that I want, which is do markup or markdown or whatever. Have I'm not even, I can't even make myself use that phrase. Let's just call it care. That's really what it is. What? What do you think? Sure, whatever. Okay. So those things are true. What's the third thing? Maybe the second thing becomes whoa. Health. Okay, that may not make a ton of sense to you right now. If you watch all the way through these videos, hopefully that will make sense. If not, I'm not doing a good job explaining what I'm actually putting into this talk. But I think those are the three things that I want to have happen in this talk. Obviously, the techniques are good, the strategies are fine. They'll find their own techniques and strategies. I can give them a bullet point list of that. Most of the time, they're not really going to take those away, per se, from the talk. Especially given that this is a keynote. It's all about that emotional bent to the talk. That's really where keynotes just slam home for me, is being able to provide some valence, some emotional valence to the actual content. And otherwise, it doesn't really go anywhere. It doesn't do anything. Your talk just sits there and just like a blob of content that people bounce off of, basically. Certainly I do. Okay. Got those three things. The next thing. Next thing is we do ASMR times with a yawn. All right. Next thing we do is outline. Once you have an idea of that vector of the talk, the valence, these are the things I want people to pull. It's about turning it into this rough arc, right? I did a little bit of that earlier when I was building up the abstract, because I thought it would be helpful. It's very important to have a very good arc for this talk, for a keynote for me. And building up that arc would allow me to make sure that the abstract matched the arc that I was actually trying to get there. Usually when I'm giving a normal talk, when I'm building an abstract for a normal talk, it's a lot more, I've described it as like, what do you call it? It's like as seen on TV products, like those black and white, like the two the television commercials for those things where you see somebody in black and white doing something like incredibly dumb, like, how can I hold all these lines? Like, yeah, there's got to be a better way. My abstracts are very much like that, where it's first paragraph is problem. Why do I care? Immediately get people invested in, okay, this is what we're going to be solving and dealing with in this talk. The second paragraph is, here's what you're going to learn. Here's what we're going to go through, the topics we're going to cover, maybe even some of the actual content, starting to break that down. Those are typically a little more for the organizer than they are for the individual themselves, because attendees don't read abstracts, but pretty much as a rule. Anyhow, we have an outline that I started. Deep breaths. Thank you. Okay. Lost my thing. Okay, there we go. God, it's been 30 minutes already. Okay. I guess I spent like 5 minutes of that looking for batteries though. Fighting with my keyboard. Hey. Now that my hands are moisturized, let's see if we can break this down any further. I will often wind up with multiple blue slides as I start building this out, because it just gets tragically complex, like condensed, and hard to read otherwise. Okay. And actually, now that I think about this, I'm gonna just mash the button a couple times. I'm gonna break each of these up into, whoa, thank you. Each of these up into kind of its own thing. So I think that will be helpful. In that each one then can become its own little piece, and I don't have to individually address, I don't have to try and cram everything together. Okay. I'm gonna have to do a little bit of research digging through, which reminds me, where did that go? Book. Oh, crisis on my bookshelf. Crisis on infinite bookshelves. Malcolm Gladwell. This is not a Malcolm Gladwell book. This is Give and Take. It is not tragic. There's a fair amount of references for a business book, which it clearly is. It's the reference section. Very important that a book has references. Otherwise, you are reading a Malcolm Gladwell book, and it's mostly a piece of crap. It's a pop psych, pop business thing, and it's going to lead you down some real dark alleys. Anyhow, this book goes into some detail about the aspects of burnout that I will want to certainly cover. I'm not going to go wholesale into burnout, because that's a top, like, again, I'm going to have to keep this general, and I want to avoid using phrases that will immediately turn people off. We will talk about burnout, but I don't want to, like, if I go into a detail, people are going to start to tune out, because they're just like, But, anyhow, he talks a bit about how re-engaging in passion projects can help burnout, even if, like, you'd be like, wait a minute, you're taking on more work. It's kind of non-intuitive. I'm going to definitely need to pull that reference out here. Excuse me. Yawning, sneezing, we're getting the gamut here. I also have this to read. I have not read through this yet. This is Women's Burnout by Herbert J. Freudenberger and Gail North. Freudenberger is one of the initial psychologists that did all of the research on burnout. Not shockingly, when you think about it, a lot of burnout research came about women initially. Nobody's really shocked. Well, actually, a lot of white dudes are shocked, but cishet white dudes. Both of those I'll probably pull things out of. We'll probably wind up pulling things out of. What did I use this book for? In my backpack. Sapersky's, Gleb Sapersky's book, which is on debiasing, actually, in relationships. It's about cognitive biases and how to get around those biases. So, kind of one of the first in a series of, in a wave of books that are coming out now that are talking about, we've talked about cognitive biases for a number of years now, and there's been a general, me included, vein of just like, well, everything's on fire and you can't deal with it. But these books are actually coming out and talking about research in helping humans be less cognitively biased. And it's very important that you use that phrase instead of talking about implicit bias, because it's a wholly different thing. Although the two are related in some really complex ways. Getting distracted. I'll have to pull from that. I'll need to see if there are references on... Sapersky was on an episode of You Are Not So Smart, which is one of my favorite podcasts. Well, not favorite. There's some really frustrating things about it, but it's one of the best podcasts I have for finding new material and finding things that I squirrel away and use as ammunition for talks, and books to read, things like that. Okay. As funny as this is, that's not probably the right framing. So, in an ideal scenario, what I come out with these blue slides is almost each bullet point becomes a green slide. That's not always what happens, but that's an ideal scenario. So that helps me explode out. Here's exactly what I want to cover in each of these things. So, this is Des Moines. This is Des Moines. We have to be careful. On the other hand, do I give a fuck if I piss off climate people? All right, let's start gentle, and we'll see if I get pissy when we get into the actual content. So we'll just talk about this in the terms of okay. Well, nice thing about the phrase civil unrest is that you can read it however you want. Okay, that's a good point. That's going to be a nice comedic beat right there. Working from home, fill the room with children or something else. Okay, that's good. All right, so we've got that going for us. If I can get one more joke in off of this piece. Okay, so you can kind of get an idea here of how these are kind of the beats I really want to hit in the story. These are the you can almost envision each of these as individual slides, as panels in effect. Like, this is a really storyboarding, I guess, is a way better term for what I'm doing here. Like 1/3 thing, because you gotta have rule of 3 here, so I'm like, it's rule of 3 and 3s at this point. Take out exercise. What's one other thing we all did? Grocery delivery, but that doesn't work with your family there. Curbside stuff, that doesn't work with your family there. Start a sourdough starter. I could do cooking, but that doesn't really work with the ordering takeout. Ah. That works. Is it? Okay. Oh, of course. Binging isn't a typo in Microsoft products. Okay. That gets me that piece. Excuse me. Okay. Simples. Take out binging TV shows with your family there. Pets loved it anyhow. Okay, is there anything else I want to cover off of this? I mean, obviously I don't want to... Don't at me that those two are related, because I know they are. Just remember, we're hitting a general audience here. It's not dry yet. That's going to be a real question. Do I want to pivot to fear on that front? Music, grooving, we're thinking. Okay. I don't know if I want to do those two separate, or if I want to keep them the same. We experienced all of those things. Where does the right button do this? Come on, I know there's a button. That one. 2 columns. Thank you. Unprecedented. Okay, I think we're on a roll going with this, because I think that we've experienced all these things, the mounts more than that we've reconsidered all of these things. Where's my mouse? There's my mouse. Jeez. Also, what is going on with this music? Go away. I think if I can get this one done, it's certainly time for a break and maybe time for done for the night. If I could just get this outline set up, just really nail this intro, because this is all frankly intro. This will take me 5 minutes probably to blow through this content. That shouldn't be really shocking. Okay, so it's probably time to which they do. Okay. So the stress gets extreme, and I call it trauma, which I think is due for another. Traumatic events. I mean, obviously losing a relative is a hugely traumatic event. Did I save all of this as blank presentation? I always do that. Sad. Right. New folder. Let's just call it. Oh wait, I actually do know the title. Yeah, I sure did. All right, so what we're gonna do is, sad face. Doesn't let me go back far enough. Okay. Open blank presentation. Delete all of you. Delete you. Okay. Close. Done. Lost a relative, been scared for their life or your own. Okay. Sorry, I wanted to make sure I got. It's very important to get the wording on that right. Very important to make sure that I get those framed exactly the way that I want them. I care a lot about the language that gets used around those things. And it can matter if you start using terms that, one, are start putting blame places, two, start to trend toward the medical model of mental health. Without getting too deep into that, it's not useful in a regular context. So that's what I think about trauma. Now the question is, do I need to do anything else on this to start being a bridge? I mean, obviously, this does not flow into this. This is a bonk. Like, there's no arc from trauma as relative to this next topic. Now, clearly in talks, you have some point where it's okay, we're on to a new topic, but there should be a flow. And I don't have it here yet. So I've got to figure out something more to say about the trauma. Okay, so I need to actually add this. Both important things to say. Maybe that's the bridge. Stop it. That's the bridge. That's perfect. Because then it's a nice perfect bridge right into this. Okay. So let's tidy up to make sure that we've got things set up for coming back to this. I'm going to flag each of these as red right now. Nope. Because they are currently incomplete. As in, I do not know what exactly is in all of these, which is what gets us the details. It's very important for me to leave it so that when I come back, I can hit the ground running, not have to figure out what I was doing. There's always some degree of that, but the more I can do to simplify that process, the better off I am. What was I doing? All right. So we got 2 blue slides. Are you not picking that up now? No, there we go. It did. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 red slides. We're off to the races, folks. Probably it for tonight. I've hit a nice bridge point to the next chunk of content. We're already beginning work on where we need to go. And can't stop yawning is really the thing. This is not due, like I have to get this done by late September. It's August. Well, I wanted to get started, so I make sure I have time to do this. There will be a lot of drawing later, because I'm going to want to draw almost every slide in this thing, since it is a keynote, and I really want to not litter up the slides with text. And unlike a lot of my topics, I don't have to do a lot of that, so we'll get there. But working at it, just little chunks. That's how we get this done. I will probably be doing a little bit of streaming on Thursday. And, well, I'll certainly be streaming tomorrow, but I'll be streaming Riven then. We will probably finish up Riven and move on to Mist Exile, the 3rd game in the Mist series. So definitely tune in for that. I will be doing, like I said, probably a stream on Thursday. We will be working through this, trying to get through at least one more of these outline slides and get that fully fleshed out. Gives me a little bit of chance to make sure I cover, like I want to do some research on the side and cover what I want to put in that ways to recover slide. And because I have some rough ideas, but I want to make sure, read my references, double check with things, and make sure that I've got some well-founded, well-supported content to be putting in there. So, with that said, I think that's it for tonight. tune in tomorrow, where we'll be finishing Ribbon, and things will be great. I will see all of you later.